Mandalorian Chapter 20, The Foundling, was fantastic. Let's talk about it. Ooh, there's so many Mandos. That's the first thing I thought about when I was watching this episode. Where did all these Mandos come from? It's like a ton of Mandos. This episode featured a ton of Grogu rising up. There's a lot of rising. We're going to talk about that in this episode, but Grogu rising from foundling to apprentice. He's starting his journey. We get to see more of that. You know, I'm convinced the creators of this show, they must have access to my son, because my 2-year-old, he must be the pattern for Grogu. Grogu walks like my son. He coos like my son. He climbs up. He puts his arms out like my son when he wants to be picked up. I think they even recorded my son. He sounds exactly like Grogu. So all of those things I've been thinking about as I've been watching The Mandalorian Season 3. So far, I haven't felt there's been a bad episode in the bunch. I've liked every episode so far, and this one is no exception. Am I the only one who is shipping Bo and Din together? Din is Daddy Mando and Bo is Mama Mando. I just can't stop seeing it. These guys got to get together. Come on, let's put them together, Disney. The action starts early in this episode. Starts out heavy with this raptor flying in and taking the little foundling that we had seen in the first episode, which we actually find out his name. We find out his heritage a little bit later. We'll talk about that. But when the raptor was flying off into the sunset right before the title card comes on, all I could think of was Dragonheart. Anybody remember that 1996 Sean Connery movie Dragonheart? That's all I could think of as I was watching him fly away. Also, very Game of Thronesy. I like the little flashback. Well, actually, there's a ton of flashbacks in this episode that I liked, but straight off the bat, one of my favorite parts of this episode was when Bo was like, oh, that was not much bigger than the peaks of Kiramarut.
These are no higher than the peaks of Kiramarut.
Very Luke vibes of, oh yeah, that's like when I used to bullseye Womp Rats, my T-16.
Well, I used to bullseye Womp Rats in my T-16 back home.
And the heart of this episode, there's kind of like A and B's plot line with Grogu and the Grogu flashback, and then Mando and the Foundling trying to rescue the Foundling from the Raptor. Let's start off with that Grogu flashback. Order 66, the Jedi Temple. Man, I was excited to see that. A little bit less wrinkles on Grogu. Saw him as a little baby Grogu. And who did they say to give Grogu to? None other than Kelleran Beck. Oh, I was very shocked, but also pleasantly surprised to see Kelleran Beck actually be in something. Now, for those of you who don't know, Kelleran is from the children's show that was on Disney Plus, Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge, which is kind of like Legends of the Hidden Temple for all of you 90s kids. That was a show that I was a big fan of, and they only had one season. There's 10 episodes. You can watch them right now on Disney Plus. But he's the host. Kelleran Beck is the host, and he's played by Ahmed Best, who Star Wars fans will know as Jar Jar Binks. He also made a little short live-action cameo in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. But, man, we got to give a shout-out. Give Ahmed Best his flowers. This guy has been through so much, being tortured and teased all throughout the 90s because of Jar Jar Binks. I should say all throughout the 2000s, because Episode 1 came out in 1999. But from that, I think he was at a point where he was almost suicidal, to the fans embracing him coming back, getting the role of Kelleran Beck on the Jedi Temple show, now being in The Mandalorian, and this is like, look, he's canon, he saved Grogu. This is a huge moment in the Star Wars universe. So Kelleran Beck is going to go down as one of those great Jedis of all time. What I loved was seeing his lightsaber dual wielding 2 sabers. He didn't have the purple one like he has in the show on Disney Plus, but you could see why they call him the Saber's Hand. This guy knows what to do with a lightsaber. So I was really happy just to see him going from this TV show host, and it's like, yeah, he's a Jedi, but you never heard of him. And now it's like, all right, he is canon. He's in The Mandalorian. He saved Grogu. He is the reason why we have Grogu today. So give a shout out to Kelleran Beck. Great moments in this episode. We got to see Foundling Grogu in this episode, getting his armor. That was great. The armor had some great moments in this one. And flying in with the Raptor, that whole, the search and rescue that we had with the Raptors. Some great moments. Like this whole episode, they're just sprinkling tidbits of information that we didn't know about before. Things like, how did Grogu get out of the temple? How do the Mandalorians eat when they're around each other? Which was something that I was always wondering about. If you can't take your helmet off, how do you eat around each other? So Bo got to find out that in this episode. I was actually very pleasantly surprised at that little bit of knowledge that they dropped on us. But also, you're seeing the rise of Bo-Katan in this one, I think. Just like we're seeing the rise of Grogu up to his Mando apprenticeship, I think we're seeing the rise of Bo-Katan. She's kind of forming her party with, I think this might be the new Death Watch that we're getting. And just her level of trust that is growing within this sect. The sect of Mandalorians has been fun. So I really enjoyed all of this episode. And there wasn't a bad moment in this episode, I don't think. Seeing that big flying raptor was cool. Not the raptors from Jurassic Park, but these are more like a dragon in Star Wars raptor. And climbing up to the little raptor nest. And we got a chance to find out that the foundling, who we saw from the first episode, is Ragnar. And he's Paz Vizsla's son.
I'm okay, Dad.
Should we say Paz or Paz? What do you think? In the comments down below, let me know. Is it Paz or Paz? Anyway, Paz Vizsla's son, or Paz Vizsla's son, Ragnar Vizsla, is the little foundling with the lisp from the first episode. So that was fun to see the little familial connections and tie there. But Ragnar, he got saved. That was cool. Seeing all the Mandalorians come together, saving each other, saving the child, and seeing the trust, like I said, that was built between those. R.I.P. to the raptor. There's always a bigger fish. Got eaten by that the other crocodile-looking monster. And then when they came back home, everybody got the Wakanda Forever salute. So that was cool.
This is the way.
We got that in the Star Wars universe. Wakanda exists, guys. It's here. And also, when they were coming back on the ship, on Bo's ship, how did they fit all three little baby raptors on there? I was like, they can fit all those Mandalorians and they fit the baby raptors on there. What's going on with that? Also, guys, can we get more fuel for your jetpacks? You can barely fly a couple meters before your jetpacks run out of fuel. Come on. And then that final shot with Bo. She gonna ride that mythosaur. Bo is definitely gonna ride the mythosaur by the end of this season. She's got to win back. I think that's the way she's going, because we saw her pick up the Darksaber and wield it. I talked about that in another Beskar breakdown. But the way that she's going to get back into the good graces of the Mandos is the mythosaur. That's what she's focused on. The Darksaber, I think she's leaving that to Din, and she's going to focus 100% on the mythosaur. And then, speaking of the mythosaur, this episode is making me want to get a mythosaur tattoo. I want to see it. Come on, guys. So overall, just a great episode directed by Carl Weathers himself, Apollo Creed, as well as High Magistrate Greef Karga.
That's High Magistrate Karga to you.
Written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Thank the maker. So that's going to wrap up another episode of Beskar Breakdowns. I really enjoyed this episode. Can you tell? What did you think? Leave a comment down below. Chapter 20, The Foundling of the Mandalorian. We're getting to that halfway point of the season, and Mandalorian is hitting on all cylinders. So I really want to see what happens at the end of this episode. See where Din and Grogu go in their journey.